Welcome to the Professor Nick Show. I am joined again by Jeanne Tanner.
Hi,
Hi,
it's
Jeanne.
great to be back, Nick.
Thank you for being here. We recorded a few months ago talking about some specifics about social media marketing and the social environment and all that stuff. It was a great interview. It was a great content and a good time. But now we're back to talk about you and your career and your expertise. And you've had quite the career, quite the professional life. And I think that I have some students out there that would really love to hear how you got to where you are and what you're doing now and where you're going this summer and all that stuff. So it's a broad, big, vague question, but can you tell us a little bit about your career, Pella?
Absolutely. Well, I can say this, that Nick, I've always been chasing a lifestyle. And I think sometimes people say, well, I want to do this, I want to do this. And I've been chasing a lifestyle for many, many years. And I'll tell you, one of the ways that I got there is I was in my 20s and I was tripping with my friend, not tripping, but road tripping. There's a natural conversation for you. But we were road tripping in Utah and we were in this field of flowers and some guy approached us and he gave me this business card. And I've kept it for 30 years. And This is what it says. I decided to live in the way that made the best memories. And it really stuck with me because I thought, okay, there's a way to live a life. That's me in the sunflower field frolicking. But this guy, I just looked him up on the internet because I was like, is this guy still alive? Zero social footprint, nothing, no digital footprint. But the whole idea was just, I thought, wow, somebody's living life like that. Yeah. And I didn't want to be like in that Cards Against Humanity game, you know, get a couple of kids, buy a bunch of shit and move to Florida. Oh, can we swear in this? Sorry, I can re-record. But I just was really looking for a little bit of a different life, Nick. And so when my husband and I first got married, I just finished school and I got a degree in communications journalism and I worked for some newspapers and in California and really enjoyed it. It was fun because I got to talk to people. I like to be the interviewer, not the interviewer as much, but I love to talk to people and I love to take photos. Yeah. And then my husband went to upstate New York and went to grad school and I was doing the same thing. And we met some friends who are these really incredible people. And they had the best lifestyle. They were always playing, they were always going boating. And we just kind of looked at them and said, wow, they're living life. Yeah. And it turned out that they had a freight franchise. And we said, okay, let's hear about this. So that was a pretty interesting story. And so my husband finished graduate school and I was still working for newspapers, loving every minute of it, making no money. Yeah. I mean, God, I think they were paying me $35 for a story. I'd have to go for, some terrible town meeting. But I mean, it was interesting though, because I learned everything about, how city government works, and it just satisfied my natural curiosity. And so anyway, our friends were talking to us about their business, and it turned out at the time we were living in upstate New York, and the franchise for Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan, came available. And I was a huge fan of New York City, even though we were poor at the time. We'd go down to the city. And I'm super financially conservative, but at that time it was like, we're never going to live in this area again. Let's go see a play. Let's, let's get dollar pizza and just really live in this city. It was far, but we did it because it was an adventure. Yeah. And so when we had the idea that for $13,000 we could own a piece of Manhattan, we were like, oh yeah!
Cheapest piece of Manhattan there is.
Exactly. And so that was pretty interesting. And so it was really an incredible experience. I mean, I was 26. We were way too young. We were way out of our league. I think we were down in Manhattan with some friends of ours. And I grew up in Seattle and, I dressed like a Seattleite, which isn't very good, back in the day. And kind of sloppy. And here we are going to Ruth Chris. And they just looked at us like, the peasants go, they treated us like crap because, they just thought, who are you stupid young people? And we thought we could have a franchise in Manhattan. Yeah. So anyhow, we ended up selling that to some people there, and I don't know. So that was great.
So we're gonna keep going forward. I want to hear more.
Okay.
But we do a section about franchising in the Introduction to Business class at Ventura College, and I think it would be helpful to understand. I know what a franchise is.
Mhm.
I've studied this before. I know
Mhm.
people that have been in franchises, but you know, say you're 19, 20 years old and you're just dipping your toe into business. What's a franchise? Why is it a good thing? What was your experience with it? And is it the type of business venture that you would recommend other people get involved in?
I think the type of business venture someone shouldn't get involved in is the type that is really going to suit who they are.
Sure.
And I think that's probably the most important thing. So most franchises are a situation where you buy a territory. Like, say, for example, I bought a portion of Manhattan that was exclusive to run a shipping business in. And so, I mean, you know what a Subway franchise is. Like, you might buy an area in Ventura to run a Subway franchise.
Right.
And for me, I wouldn't want to do restaurant franchising. And that's what I hear a lot of franchises being. But I think for me, it was fantastic. I had a great time. I loved, even though I'd never taken a business class when I bought a franchise, I went for it. And I worked hard. My husband and I were partners. We had the best time. We made great money. We had incredible opportunities. But I think if you're looking at a franchise, you should do the research. And for us, back at the time, there wasn't an internet we could research on. It was like, wow, hey, we have these friends and they have this franchise and it's pretty good. And our friend had used to work at the corporate office in Utah. And so he knew all the ins and outs. And so we had a fantastic resource. So I think when you're looking at the kind of business to buy, if you're interested in a franchise, that's great. Become friends with somebody who owns a franchise, see what it's really like, do your research. You can learn a lot online, but I think one good way to figure out business, because there are so many different arenas, is to look around your circle of friends and say, okay, what are they doing? Do they have a lifestyle that's appealing? And why is it appealing?
Right.
And so, I mean, people are always interested in curious young people. Go ask questions.
Yeah. Quick question.
Sure.
$13,000.
Yeah.
You're young. You're saying you're broke. Where did the $13,000 come from? Was that your own personal savings that you and your husband had put aside, or did you get a bank loan? Where did that come from?
I think we had the money in savings, Nick. So, I mean, you've got to consider this was a different time. And I would say that I grew up in a pretty privileged time in the fact that college wasn't ridiculously expensive. We didn't have this idea that we had to have this super expensive wedding. So we got money for the wedding and we put it in savings. And yes, we were broke, but it was more like this. Any money that we put away and saved, because we both worked for a while before we went to New York, it got put in an account in California that we couldn't touch.
Gotcha. So
And
you're broke, but you're still eating 3 meals a day.
Yeah, we
and
weren't
you're
that
not-
broke.
Not that
but
broke.
on
Gotcha.
the other hand, like, you have to understand,
Yeah.
we lived like we were. We lived,
Yeah.
in a one-bedroom apartment. We
Yeah.
lived cheaply because we knew that that's not what we spent our money on, things that mattered, like travel. And we'll get to that later.
We'll get to
But
travel.
But I think later when we had the franchise, how we did it is I had a whole document called, after we sold the Manhattan franchise, we doubled our money, and which seemed like a lot. And we used that money as a down payment to buy the franchise in California, or it was Ventura, Santa Barbara, San Luis.
Right.
And that was more expensive, but we had a down payment that time,
Yep.
and they financed us, the owners financed it.
Okay.
And so if you're looking at buying a franchise or a business, see if the owners are going to finance it, because I think that's the best way,
Interesting.
because they have a reason to help you succeed. But I remember the years when we were paying those off. I mean, we worked hard, and instead of getting a bank loan, I had a term I called credit card management, and we just kept rolling over the 0%. And even to this day, we have credit cards on our Christmas tree, because when we paid them off, we like put,
whole
put a
bunch.
string on them. Yeah. And it was just kind of, we'd thrown some of them away, but we've always tried to live our life in a, carefully financially.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though I say I'm broke, there's money away somewhere, because I've been careful.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I've always tried to do that.
Yeah.
Some years better than others. But when my wife and I met and we first started dating, 14 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, she would laugh because when I said that I was broke, that just meant that I didn't have money in my checking account
Right.
to go spend right now.
Uh-huh.
But the savings was always there, and I was always trying to contribute to it. And her
Mm-hmm.
joke was that when she says she's broke, she's like, "Yeah, no, I'm broke. That's it. There's no savings account to pull from." But we were young then, so yeah. Okay, so you franchised, you made some money in New York, you moved to California.
Mm-hmm.
what happens in California? How does that franchise go? And then you get yourself into the photography business. And are they happening concurrently, or did one end and the new one began?
Okay, so the way this one worked is we got an apartment. We lived near the beach, so we could live, just we can enjoy our lives. Yeah. Anyway, we started this franchise, and I worked in the office, did collections, reactivated current clients, because we bought an existing franchise, and that meant there were already clients. And my husband was out doing sales, and so we ended up growing the business. We're still in an apartment now, and 2-bedroom apartment. We've got one room dedicated to an office. We've got teenagers coming in to answer the phone. We've got having sales rep meetings in this little stupid office. I mean, but we had fun, but
yeah.
we didn't go buy a fancy office. We just kind of worked with what we had.
Yeah.
And the lifestyle was great. We'd go to the beach every day at 5. Whoever's working, we'd go to the beach. Bill would go for a run. We'd go to the ocean, and I created some great relationships. And so I think that's what you can get in business is you're in control of your life to a certain degree. You can run the business or it can run you, but if you're careful and you take care of yourself, meaning, be careful with your money, be watching your cash flow, because I learned in my business class that I took at Ventura College that one of the reasons businesses fail is cash flow, and so you've got to be really careful with it. And so we were conservative financially.
Good.
And so when both of our daughters were born, we moved the studio, the office, into an actual business, because, come on,
You could put the crib under the office
believe me, we
room
tried,
table?
but we did move it out of the 2-room apartment, and so we ended up, after a while, we'd done the business, and I think I was I don't know how I did this, but I think I enjoyed reading, and I saw the sense of change, and I thought the business was changing. And so we ended up getting an offer, and we sold it, and we did really well. And it was a gift. And my husband also wanted to go back to do whatever job he was doing in science. So in the meantime, I'd started one room of that office, became a photography studio.
Okay.
So I think when you have one business, it's easier to go into another one.
Sure.
And so started bringing clients into the little room, and then eventually we took over the whole thing as we sold that business.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, and even after I sold the photography studio to a partner, she was in that business for a long time in the same site.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you get out of the franchising business, you start a photography business, which you have a partner in?
Yes. So
okay. Because I've got experience with partners as well, business partners. And so there's the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
What happened?
There's good and bad in every relationship, right?
Okay.
And I know we went from LLC with the first business, and then we moved to partnership. I think we were to basic partnership and then turned into an S Corp. Okay. But basically, I'd met a girl. We were great friends. We said, hey, let's do this thing together. And so we did. And partnership agreement, what's that? Plan for exit, what's that? We just said, okay, let's do this thing. Yeah. How hard can that be, right?
Yeah.
And it went really well in a lot of ways. I think when you have a partnership, anybody can relate to it, whether you're in a relationship with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and you deal with that whole thing. There are ups, there are downs, there's good, there's bad. And I dealt with it in my first relationship, or in my relationship with my husband, what it's like to be a partnership. And then having a new partner, it was like, wow, there was great stuff. And then there was some not great stuff. Yeah. And I think what happened in the end is when I was ready to leave, I had 2 kids, I was working all the time. My husband had quit his job because we were making so much money in the photography studio. And you don't hear about that in photography. Yeah. People don't generally make that kind of money to live at the beach and support a whole family. Right. But we had a lot of photographers working for us, but at a certain point, I was just getting a little tired of it. I just had a different goal in mind.
Okay.
And I didn't like some of the things that were going on, so I said to my husband, I'm ready to leave. I'm out of here. I would have walked away just because I wanted to change. And he said, don't be stupid. You got to get some money out of this. And so got a great buyout out of that.
Great.
So thanks to my husband, he was smart, because I was emotional. And so he said, be smart about this. You've built something really good.
Yeah.
And so I got a great buyout and then became a sole proprietor. And I was pretty happy about that. I was back to, running my business out of my house and meeting clients at Starbucks, and that was looking pretty good.
Yeah. I've done that.
It's
kind of
good
nice.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think anytime you're going into business, I think the one thing I'd advise if you're involved in a partnership is to really approach it with some seriousness. Like, this isn't just fun, because you don't know where it's going to go. In the beginning, when you do a gig together, it's pretty easy. But we built something that was big.
Yeah.
And I wanted to leave, and I didn't know how.
Yeah.
And it wasn't laid out.
Interesting.
But got it figured out.
Got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've gone through that myself.
It's hard, right, Nick?
It is hard. It is hard. And it's also hard, too, because a lot of times we end up in business partnerships with close friends.
Yes.
And so then you start thinking to yourself, if you have different objectives with the business, what's more valuable, this business or our friendship? And that's a hard question to answer. And it's different for everyone, and it's different in every situation. So you tread very lightly in those waters. And at least in my situation, my close friend and I, who started the business together, it could have gotten very ugly. And we were both very careful to make sure to communicate to each other as things were starting to get ugly, that the friendship was valuable, and it was more valuable than the business was. So, but there were rough times. We came out on top of it, though. So he's still my closest friend. So.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job. You're lucky. It doesn't
really
always
lucky.
happen that
No,
way.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
It's interesting because I've been asked again to be in partnerships with other photographers who we fit right in. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. Even though I know it would be good financially,
right.
I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm ready for.
Yeah. If you need a partner on one day to go capture a wedding,
right.
Call me. I'm your guy. I'm your gal.
Right.
But moving into an office together, signing an agreement together, taking out a bank loan together.
Ouch, no.
Different story, right?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think that it's just figure out what you want and take it seriously.
Well, and then here's the other tricky thing too, at least this was my experience, is a lot of partnerships that are started, a lot of businesses that are started by young professionals. You are not thinking at all, like you said, exit strategy, what happens 10 years down the road? All you're thinking is, as two young, ambitious, creative people, we have an opportunity here to start something that we own.
Right.
And we can actually make money doing. Everything else, the stuff that's going to happen 10 years down the road, none of that really matters in the moment, right?
And you can't even imagine.
Yeah.
You can't even imagine. We thought maybe we'd just photograph a few weddings.
Yeah.
And we ended up at our busiest time photographing 40 weddings in a weekend. I mean, who does that?
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Are there 40 weddings in a weekend in this county area?
Yeah.
I guess there are.
But we had a staff of 10 photographers. Who would have ever guessed that?
Yeah.
Who would have ever guessed?
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to plan ahead, because you never know. You never know if you're actually going to be successful. Wow.
True. Oops. Oops, I'm good at what I do.
Hey, let's try again. What's next? What's next on the list?
So what's next? You get into business for yourself. When did all this happen? When did you go solo officially?
I think I went solo, I don't know, gosh. I'm going to fail that test, Nick.
Ballpark.
It was ballpark. I was somewhere, mid-30s.
Okay.
Somewhere mid-30s. And I'd been a boss and a business owner for a good, I think it was probably later 30s, if you think about it. Okay, because my kids were, all right. But it was about 15 years anyway, that I was the boss of everyone. And it was freaking exhausting. I was young. I didn't know anything. I was making my own employee manuals. And it wasn't like, oh, hey, I think I'll just look one up on the internet. It wasn't like that.
There wasn't an internet, yes.
And so I was tired. So anyway, as a sole proprietor, it was fun because all the connections I'd made in that past business time, it was easy. Kind of business just kind of fell off the trees to me.
Yeah.
And it's still a little bit like that.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of getting ready to move on.
Yeah.
I know that the next step I made was, in that time with all the photographers, I made great friends.
Yeah.
I think you talked about Kevin, and he always comes to your class, and we all love Kevin. He's the best.
He's the best.
And we love the Kevin stories.
Yes.
But And I made friends like that too in that business, and all those photographers have been people who have really helped change the course of my life. And say, for example, one of my photographers was Ronnie, who was in your class.
Yeah.
And she said, Jeannie, you've got to come take a class from Nick. You would love him. He's great. He's charming. I think you would absolutely love him. And I was like, I'll think about it. And I came to the class, the PR class, and I was like, wow, this is so fun. It's so fun to be back in school. I can't wait. And so soon enough, within the year, I finished my social media certificate and loved it. And I never expected, I wasn't one of those people who thought I needed a graduate degree because I was too busy making money.
Yeah, right.
And I know this isn't grad school, but it's still, it's further education, and it's been a blast. So
and actually that's on my list of things that I wanted to kind of hit on. You've been in business for yourself now. You're sole proprietor. You're fine. You're making money. You're living in Ventura. You're living close to the beach, whatnot. And all of a sudden you're in my class, and I think we met. So PR would have been spring. Gosh, was it just last year?
Just last year.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Time flies.
So Ronnie was in the social media marketing class the semester before, which would have been fall 2018, I believe.
Right.
And she comes into the public relations class on Thursday nights and drags you in. Mm-hmm. So you have no real reason to be going back to school, just that your friend said, I think you'll enjoy taking this class. Let's go socially, right? Let's go socially learn something about marketing and public relations. Is that it?
It was kind of that, but then also I think I have a little bit of a sense, and I've figured this about myself after I've been alive 50 years. I can kind of see when things are coming. Not completely. Okay. It's not like I can foresee the future, but if you pay attention to the clues, you see things changing. And I knew my husband was getting ready to retire. He has an option to retire from Camarillo High School, and he's talked about teaching internationally for a while. And I was like, And I was I think when you're passionate about something,
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm not passionate about what I do. It's a job,
Yeah.
I take wedding photos. I do a great job. I'm good at it. But I didn't have that deep passion. And when I was back to school, I was like, oh my God, I remember this feeling. This feels great. I'm excited. Yeah. Not just I'm good at something and I've been doing it for a long time. But wow, this is new and this is fun. And I feel so engaged. So anyway, so got the program done. And now we're moving to Colombia in July. And I've got this brand new updated degree. I'm going to social media marketing world in March, and
that's awesome.
I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do in Bogotá, but got some ideas. Yeah.
Well, and one of the great things about this industry, whether it's social media marketing, or I know you do some, freelance writing and stuff like that, is that photography you can't necessarily do remotely, right? You can't move to Colombia and have someone in Santa Barbara say, hey, can you do my wedding this weekend? No, I can't. I'm literally in a different country that's far, far away. One of the things that's, in my opinion, great about social media marketing or digital marketing or some of these new age, business opportunities that you can get into is that you can do it remotely. You can do some of this freelance writing from afar. You can get hired on to do some of these social media marketing strategies and tactics for businesses or for local professionals from Colombia. So I don't know. I mean, you had said that you're seeing the writing on the wall. You're seeing things change. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe you're seeing that, there's some work that I could do to keep money flowing a little bit, even though I'm thousands of miles away. I don't know. I'm putting words in your mouth.
No. I mean, you're absolutely right, Nick. I mean, because here I am. I've joined a few Facebook groups because I think they're useful for gathering information. Expats in Bogotá.
There you go.
Nomads, like digital nomads.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all these groups that talk about, different ideas for writing remotely and for doing anything remotely. But when you consider I've got business experience, I can write, I can take great photographs. I mean, I think I've got a very broad set of circumstances here of skills. And it's just like, I know there's got to be something. I'm learning new things about a new industry. And so I'm pretty open-minded about what it is I'm going to do. But I can tell you this, I'm on LinkedIn every day just seeing what jobs are available in Bogotá for content writing, content managers, what kind of remote jobs are available. I'm looking. Great. And I'm thinking, I mean, I'm not there yet. I'm not looking for jobs or applying for jobs yet, but I'm seeing, okay, what's out there? Yeah. And I mean, 30 jobs come up a day in things that I could consider doing.
That's cool.
Bogotá's a big city, so
Bogotá's a big city, and you have a wide scope of experience where you could get into this or this or this or this. You probably are unique in that situation too. So completely off subject, but maybe a little bit on subject before I dive more into Colombia, because I want to hear more and I'm really interested in the opportunity. My wife and I, we honeymooned in Belize.
Oh, love
2000, yeah, right? What's
Gorgeous.
not to love? I think
The
it
sand
was
flies,
well, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And no, that's not right. 2011.
Are you
so,
passing the test, Nick?
So but the business is well underway, right?
Right.
I'm running a business. I'm running my digital marketing agency or whatever you want to call it. And we go to Belize, and you mentioned the expat community. Huge expat community in Belize. And there were moments where I'm thinking, because we're just on the beach the entire time, and I'm thinking, honey, we could stay here and I could just open up shop. These folks are running hotels, they're running B&Bs, they've got little bars by the beach. We could do this, and I could, dial in remotely with my clients that are stateside, and then we could start up from here. And we obviously didn't do that, and I was never really that serious about it because our families are so big and strong back here in the Southern California area. But the idea that it was even a possibility back then, and even more so now, is what makes the world that we live in now different than it was before. So that's my spiel. But I've never been to Colombia. I've heard great things about Bogotá.
On Narcos?
On Narcos. Yeah. Totally. Sign me up for the Narcos world. Those guys lived in beautiful houses, and what could ever go wrong? What are you looking forward to? I'm an obsessive, not planner, because I don't like to have a structure when I'm traveling, but I'm obsessive about learning about where it is I'm going. The restaurants that I want to go eat at, the excursions and the hikes that I want to go do, the culture that I want to experience. So I get the sense that maybe you're the same way.
Oh, I might be just
You
a little bit obsessed. Yeah. I mean, Nick, we have so many similarities. Oh, yeah. I mean,
So what are you looking forward to?
I mean, honestly, my husband got a few different job opportunities internationally. And one of the reasons Bogotá really interested me was the art scene. I mean, they have over 60 museums, and they've got great museums there. So they have a great art scene. They have all kinds of arts festivals, music festivals. I mean, it is a place where a lot is happening. Yeah. And I've lived in Ventura so long. I love Ventura, but you know what? How many times can you go to the same restaurants? And so I'm looking forward to the food there. There's so many different things. I mean, I've been learning Spanish for a long time.
Yeah. All those Netflix Spanish novellas.
Yeah, I'm a fan. But I mean, I feel like I'm looking forward to becoming completely fluent in Spanish.
Great.
If I don't find the right job right away, well, first thing I'll do is improve that Spanish, because everything I know and Spanish fluency increases, well, there is another skill set.
Absolutely.
And so that museums, the arts, just being outside, not having a car. I know, not having a car. Hey, it's big.
That's cool. We went to visit one of my wife's friends who lives in Chicago many years ago, 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And I just remember thinking, I love LA. And I'm going to ask you a question about LA in just a moment, or Southern California. I would never give it up. It is my favorite place in the whole world.
Okay.
But when I've been in places like Chicago, New York, Paris, Barcelona, Madrid, etc., gosh, I'm jealous of the public transportation. I'm jealous that I have to have a car where I live, and I would love to get rid of a car and just walk places that are close by, or hop onto an L to go into the city, or whatever it is. So, yeah. So I'll ask that question. Okay. I don't know if it's my last question or not. I've got a bunch written down, and I think that we've hit most of the. Oh no. Okay. I'm going to save that question for the end.
Last. Okay.
Okay. And I want to get your take on this as well, because it's the year 2020. My wife, she stopped working a few years ago to start raising our kids. We have 4, and when the third one was like 3 or 4 months, she stopped working, and then we had a fourth one, and the decision was made to raise the kids until they're all in school so she can go back to work, because it's a lot to juggle. We're in the year 2020. I have 3 daughters. A couple of them might even be smart. They're still young yet. Honey, Sadie, Kenzie,
if
Henley,
they're your children,
smart.
I'm sure they're smart, Nick.
I'm sure you're smart. I'd like to think that they could have successful careers in the future and do whatever they want to, but motherhood is complicated, and it's time consuming. So what was the impact of having kids on your career? First of all, at what point in this journey did all that start to happen?
Okay.
How did it change things? Did it change things? What was your view on your career as you started to have these other, responsibilities? And by responsibilities, I mean literally mouths to feed.
Okay, so when I first got married, I got married early, at 22. Okay. And I had always heard about kids. And I thought, and I'd babysat before, I didn't really like it, frankly. Kids were dirty, they were messy. You babysat and every surface was sticky and it was gross. And so, but I also knew that I wanted to have kids. But when I did, I knew I wanted to do it right. And so I waited till I was 30. I'd had some experiences to travel. I'd had a lot of life experiences. And so when I was 30, we were in Ventura, and we owned the franchises in Ventura, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo. And so I was in the office, and my husband was in sales and the whole thing. So we were in the midst of a very busy business.
Right. And
so we had our first daughter. And I know you've told stories about having children and working at the computer in the delivery room. I mean, that was exactly, Nick. I mean, there was no parental leave. No. There was like, have that baby and get back to work, honey. And I mean, but I mean, there was freedom in that, because by that time we had an office manager. But it wasn't like my husband could stay home and we could have all that bonding time as a family. I mean, I'm glad my mom was there, because I mean, it was just like, wow. And so after we had our second child, it was kind of like we thought it was a little bit time. And so that's when my husband started working back as a chemist at 3M in Camarillo. Okay. Unimportant. But at the time, I was starting my photography business. And I remember we had 2 kids, and he was working shift work. So it was the kind of thing where days, nights, you never knew what schedule he had. I mean, why they made chemists do that, it's terrible for you. But anyway, we had one opportunity where I was supposed to be working, he was supposed to be working, and we didn't have anything to do with the kids. And we just looked at each other and said, forget about it. This is the worst thing we're doing to ourselves ever. And so we sat down and really looked at the finances and saw, okay, I mean, he had a good job, but I was making bank and I had potential to make more. Yeah. And he said, okay, I'm going to quit my job and stay home with the kids. Oh. I mean, and who does that, right? Did you know that, Nick?
I did not know that.
So basically, he was a stay-at-home dad, all while the kids were little in diapers. And at that time, even though I was busy, I still had the schedule. We could walk our daughters to kindergarten. We always, we had 2 kids, and we would always have family lunch. I mean, it was like, it's how they do it in South America. We had a family lunch together. And I mean, I had my schedule where we could do things that really mattered like that. Yeah. I mean, I was there volunteering, and I was busy. Yeah, don't think that I wasn't. Yeah. But I had the mama daddy at home taking care of the business. That's what they called him. They got confused. That's awesome. And so, but I mean, every decision we made from that time was to focus on how could our life be better with our daughters. And I remember Ronnie, back to Ronnie, who was one of the photographers for me at that time, when I got busy in the photography studio, and she'd had to work all the time when her kids were little. And I was facing that, I don't want to miss out on all of this, because it's only going to come around once. Yeah. Business is always going to be here. Yeah. And so I said to her, if you could change anything, would you do everything you could to be with your kids? And she said, without question. Yeah. And so that week I told my partner, I'm ready. I want out. Didn't have an exit plan, had no idea how I was going to get out. Gotcha. And at the same time, my husband, while he was being the mama daddy, had gone back to school, gotten a teaching credential, and he'd gotten offered a job. Yeah. And it was like all these things were happening at once.
Magic.
And I mean, magic or what? I mean, just things were happening, and it was like, okay. Yeah.
Our friends, make your own luck, right?
Yeah, it maybe, but we were lucky. Yeah. But our friends who know us say, every 7 years, Tanners are going to make a big change. What's coming next? And it's true, we do. And
Here comes Colombia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it was so, and then when I became sole proprietor, I worked less. I didn't have to manage other people. I mean, it was when my daughter was in 5th grade, we had the goal, we walked to school on the beach every day. I mean, we were living, the family was first. Yeah. It's not that I wasn't working, I worked, but when Bill was teaching, my busy time was in the summer. He was home with the kids full time. Yeah. So it was a high priority. I'm glad.
I feel like you and I have made similar decisions. I'm a little bit behind you with my career and my life, but
you're younger.
A little bit younger. A lot of decisions that my wife and I have made over the past 7 years, my oldest daughter is 7, is to be there as often as possible with the kids. And one of the reasons why I love the jobs that I have is because of the flexibility. Mm-hmm. As a college professor, as a business instructor of Enter College, I work long, hard hours. Mm-hmm. The great thing about it, though, is that aside from needing to be in my office 5 hours a week and mm-hmm. teaching 3 in-person classes, the other mm-hmm. classes are online, mm-hmm. My requirement to be at a certain place at a certain time, the course of the week, is minimal. So that means that I can do my work the other day. So today's Tuesday, January 28th. Mm-hmm. Yesterday was my wife's birthday. I had a ton of work to do yesterday, mm-hmm. and I'm sorry, folks. I know that this podcast and interview is all about Jeannie, but here's my story.
No, go, Nick. Aren't they getting sick of me by now?
my wife's birthday was yesterday, and I knew that when I left work, when I left the office, I wanted to be able to go home and be with her and the kids mm-hmm. and celebrate with dinner and ice cream and a walk and all that stuff that we want to do as a family together. But I knew that I had a ton of work to do. Mm-hmm. So in order to, in my opinion, earn the mm-hmm. right to be able to take, from 4 o'clock on off and be with my family, I woke up at before the crack of dawn, hours before the crack of dawn, so that I could log my time in, prep my classes, mm-hmm. do some grading for my online classes, get ready for the day, mm-hmm. go to work, do my thing, and then at 4 o'clock I can, and I don't have, a boss or a dean, knocking on my door. Where are you? You're supposed to be here. No, they recognize and understand that I am here working hard every day, every week, and that I will not miss anything that I'm supposed to. But for me, in the back of my mind, it's all because I want to be there for that kindergarten concert. I want to be there for that, 7-year-old ballet recital. I don't care. I want to be there for all of it. So
exactly. Yeah. And why? Yeah. Why would you not?
Look,
I mean, because
I decided to live in the way that made the best memories, and that's what I want to remember from this time in my life is my kids.
Exactly. I mean, you got it, Nick. I mean, because that is nothing else matters. No. I mean, feeding them, yes.
Yeah, of course.
but I mean, I read something recently, and it talked about the whole idea. The best job benefit anybody can ever have is flexibility. And for me, I've had one job for a year and a half, working for a newspaper. It was the only full-time job I've ever had, working for somebody else. I mean, I'm sort of unemployable, but if somebody's trying to hire me, don't listen to that shit. But I mean, I just need that flexibility. And it's not that I don't work hard, and it's not that you don't. I mean, your tests are always graded on time. Every single, every assignment we ever have with you as a teacher, we've been through that twice. Everything's always graded and quickly. Yeah. And it's so appreciated. Thanks. And I mean, your classes are always great. You're on point. Thanks. But lifestyle, chasing a lifestyle, Nick. What else are you looking for?
That's what I'm in it for. That's what I'm in it for. And I look back at decisions that I've made. I feel like I could have been taking more corporate jobs, making a whole lot more money, and living a much different lifestyle. But I would spend a lot of that time away from my family and away from my young kids, and that's just not worth it to me. So, so we're doing fine as we are right now. We're happy, we're healthy. There's a roof over the head. There is food on the table, mm-hmm. and that's what's important.
And you get to go to soccer games every Saturday.
I get to go to soccer games. I get to go to dance. I get to go to, I got to sell some Girl Scout cookies. You want to sell some Girl Scouts? You want to buy some Girl Scout cookies?
No, I'll pass.
Anybody out there want to buy some Girl Scout cookies, knock on my door, MCW 307.
Just take them to class. Everybody going to buy them. You can charge double price in class. Night class? Are you kidding, Nick?
Actually, the plan is, because I'm not that's not the kind of salesperson that I am, and I don't want to beat down people's door. But what we thought we'd do is my oldest daughter would make a sign that says like, Girl Scout cookies for sale here, just knock, and I'll just tape it on my office door, and that way anybody walking by my office door is like, oh, really? Knock, 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 and I'll just keep a stack in my office. So
bring her by, have your wife bring her by class with the box, they'd be gone.
Oh yeah,
Cute totally. As your kids are, gosh. Please.
Yeah, my wife also doesn't want that pressure either. She doesn't like to sell. So anyways.
That's fine.
I saved the best question okay. for last.
All right.
And it's, you know, it's an easy question to answer, and then we'll end on that. LA or New York?
Oh, man. New York, 100%. Are you kidding me? Oh, my gosh.
Not what I was expecting.
Are you kidding me, Nick? I mean, no. I mean,
really?
For real. I mean, I'm kind of afraid to say I hate LA in front of you, but...
Oh, wow. Okay.
Ventura, yes.
Okay.
But, okay. New York
well,
City.
I pushed the boundary of LA to include Ventura. I feel like we're close enough.
Okay, Ventura, I love Ventura. But New York City, man, there's an energy there, the attitudes there, the arts, the people, the way they dress. I mean, what do I read? The New Yorker magazine. I mean, my daughter had
Is that a paper magazine?
Oh, it's actually it is.
They print it on the press?
Yeah, I don't know if they still do as much, but I read it on occasion. But I mean, the intelligence there. It is, I mean, because I'm a third generation Washingtonian, the weather, the intensity, people who read, drink a lot of coffee. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's an intelligence there it's just different than here. The energy's different.
Yeah. There is a different energy, and I'm not at all saying that I don't like New York. I love New York. I've been multiple times, and if you gave me the opportunity to go back right now, I would go. But at least in my opinion, from a weather standpoint, it's only inhabitable for about 3 months out of the year. So I'm a hard pass on New York in the winter. I'm a hard pass on New York in the summer. Sorry, folks. July, 95 and sticky. Shower. You talked about the clothes that they wear. Can you imagine it being 100 degrees outside and 100% humidity, taking a shower, putting on your suit, and just being drenched in sweat? Yeah, I'm a big no thank you on that.
Wow. So let me tell you this, just to end on Bogotá. It's fall weather year round. So that's right where I'm thinking.
This is why I love the coast of Southern California. We were in Santa Monica before, Ventura, 72 and sunny.
If you're talking weather, Ventura always wins. Okay.
Okay. I'll give you that.
Okay.
But culture, food, there's a lot of things that New York has on us, but I'm LA till I die.
Oh my gosh. You know, Nick, there's going to be a time I'm going to have an apartment in New York, and it may be only for a month or so. Want you to come. I mean, I don't think I'll be able to afford it forever, but I know I want to just live there for a while. I mean, boy, I love it.
It's a wonderful place. Okay. I love it.
All righty.
Well, wishing you the best travels. I know it's still many months away, but I know that you're anticipating it, and it's really exciting. I'm excited for you. I hope we get a chance to see each other at least a few more times before you go. So,
Thanks for having me, Nick.